Hello and welcome to episode 4 of my podcast series, Interviews with Educators. My guest is the wonderful Katrin Brait, who is coming to us from the Netherlands. She has years and years of experience working with families, schools, and learners, facilitating community building and overall supporting the individuals so that everyone in the school environment can thrive. And hello, if you're new to me and my work, I'm Christina Kottman. I was an international educator for 10 years, and now I'm a consultant working with school leaders. I specifically help with well-being practices, school culture, communications, and onboarding. As with all of the conversations in this podcast series, I'm aiming to amplify the wisdom, the shared insights, and experiences of different educators from around the world. Welcome back, Katrin. It's so nice to have you again. And this is a conversation I have been so excited to have. You know, back in October, we both were attendees at the Unconference hosted by the Education Policy Alliance. And that whole event was about dreaming. How can schooling be more about thriving and well-being and supporting the people who attend institutions like schools? So in that event, we did a lot of thinking about the barriers and the conditions that schools and learning spaces would need to be able to have opportunities for human thriving. So taking us back to that moment when we were at the conference and thinking about how do we do this? What was kind of crossing your mind?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because it brought me immediately back again to me as a child. And you were talking about dreams and hopes. And I was a dreamer. I was born as a dreamer. Like I always saw possibilities everywhere. And then you get this, your parents, the environment says like, oh, yeah, but you're a dreamer. You have to grow up. You have to be realistic. You have to become practical. So a bit of kind of stopped doing that. And just the last years, I really reconnected to it and kind of start now owning it again, that I'm a dreamer and I see possibilities everywhere. I'm not restricted by, I listen to the most very strange stories and it's like, could it be possible? I can't really see, but why not? You know, like I never have this thing like, oh, that's not possible or that's not okay. Or not because I think everything, I can do everything, but why not? Maybe somewhere I can't see it yet, but maybe it is. And that's a very, very nice attitude to go into the streaming field of education, because then you don't restrict yourself with everything what's already here. So that's what came up with me at this conference, that like this, I saw all these possibilities and then like having these learning spaces and not schools anymore, because we are associated with schools like walls and buildings and classrooms and kinds of setting that brings so much restrictions. But if you have learning spaces where people come because they want to learn, they love to get knowledge and to exchange with each other and to learn from each other, for me, it's much more appealing. It's like, wow, how could it look like? And how would you do that? And how would you do that? And maybe that's also what did draw me to democratic education, because there you have this space of possibilities. And still it's quite hard because you still have this artificial setting of a school, and there are already like homeschooling learning spaces who throw it more open, but then it's also difficult to get the connections and the networks. And you have these very beautiful projects like the city as a school. I think that's what's approaching most like this dream I have, that you can learn everywhere with everyone you want to learn.
And it's also like crossing disciplines. I have this beautiful memory from university where my friends and I were all sitting around this big table at the library on campus. And we were all doing our separate research. You know, we had a pile of books next to us. But every so often, one of my friends would say, oh, you guys need to hear about this. Like, I just read it. It's so interesting. And then someone else who was studying a totally different topic would bring up something from like music. And this person was sharing something about history. And there'd be connections. And we would eventually like go back to doing our work. And then something else would pop up. A friend who's studying biology would be like, hey, by the way, this kind of looks similar to what you were talking about before with music notes. And we would have all of this, opportunity to say, wow, the world is more connected and our disciplines are actually not as separate as, the system of higher education would like us to believe. I think it's really important to remember we can always learn from others. You can either learn what to do or what not to do. And with democratic education, I think there's a lot of pressure to say, we don't want that, so we're going to make something else. But also by isolating that is over there, it's othered, you sometimes lose out on some of the great things that are happening in mainstream education, including having learners connect different disciplines by having math, science, reading, writing all in one day. So what's your take on this?
It was a very big one. You mentioned the word separation. I think that's something in my dreams and in my hopes, something we get rid of.
Yeah.
Separating by age, separating by themes, separating by whatever, it's not working. It really hinders the flow. And yeah, also with democratic education, it's something young, but it had the same issues. Like you have the schools and we do different. And at the democratic school I worked, it was a government funded school. So we had a real different population than maybe on other democratic schools, private schools. And there were this kind of three groups of parents of population would come, and it was this group with children. They couldn't go anywhere else because they needed this other environment. Then there was this group of parents who really are into democratic education. They said, okay, there is something there. I loved it. And it came a letter of mother. She's wonderful. And she said, my children learned to say no. And I had a hard time with it, but I'm so happy that they learned to say no. And that was like, wow, maybe that's what it all evolves around, that you learn to say no in a society like ours. And then you had the third population, that was people who wanted to do it different. And that also was kind of bring a lot of tension in, because then it has to be this different and that, and even democratic education had to be different. So then you don't make a real choice. What comes out of there is like, there is a framework in like finding your own learning path. What's coming with democratic education. You choose yourself with whom you learn, where you learn, what you learn. This having a vote, like one person, one vote system. Mm-hmm. So you always can, if you want, if you have the motivation, you can participate in decision making. And I think what we maybe took for granted, but it's not, it's like this age mixture, that you're able to move beyond the ages, across the ages, I don't know how you say it. And that's something I really want to bring into every form of education, in every form of, maybe just in our human society, how we interact with each other.
Yeah.
Your own path, you have a vote. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter if you're 4 or it's on your level, but why shouldn't you have a say because you're 4? And always and then you don't have a say all the time, and then you're 18 and then you have to have a say. It's like, okay, how do we do this now? It's like there's one day and then suddenly everything turns around. So I would love to bring this concepts, principles just into education, and how the teaching goes, and how you find out yourself, because if the student has a say, it's not like I do what I want, but it's like this negotiation. You have a term like negotiated curriculum. I think it's wonderful to find out together, like, okay, what do you want? What can I offer? What's possible? Maybe we find someone else. Maybe we are a match. Maybe we are not. So I think it's more freeing, liberating, and also bringing us grown-ups back to what we really want to do. Like sharing what we know, our experiences, our knowledges, our I think that's much evaluating. I think I don't know the English word now, but I remember, like, at our democratic schools we invited scientists or people from the outside, because children said, okay, we want to go, and then there would come someone, and there was a small group. Most of the times there are 5 children, maybe 10 children. Not even most of the times they went these big groups. So the first thing was like, oh, that's a small group, our guest would say. And then after a while, but they're really interested. Huh? Wow. They really ask, wow, oh, wow, but that's nice. And then you got this interaction. And they really were like, okay, that's something different. That's something else. Because everyone who was there really wanted to be there and was really interested, asking questions and trying to find out what's going on. And it was changed the whole setting.
Exactly. It's like when you bring in community members. I mean, I've seen this every single time we've brought in someone who was a grandparent or, a friend of the family who does something really cool with biology and nature here in Brazil. When they got into the classroom, it was like they brightened up because they got to talk about what they are passionate about, what their work is. And the students were just asking the best questions. And every single time they left like, oh, I need to do this more often. So that's what I would suggest to schools around the world to do, like really get involved in the community, local community, even doing Zoom calls like this back and forth, where there's just an opportunity for someone to share their knowledge in a context that the students wouldn't get otherwise. They see you as the classroom teacher, as the holder of all the knowledge, then why would they ever go and talk to someone else? Why are they going to go interview the clerk at the store and say, how did you get into this job? Do you like doing math, or is it all like numbers pressing on the machine? And that's, I think, what we're ultimately trying to get across with schooling is like, you live in a community of other humans. And if you approach everything, every interaction with they're doing something, I'm doing something different, there's no space to actually collaborate. There's no space to get curious about how their approach works for them. But if you already experienced that in schools, you're attached to your community, there's people coming in all the time who are sharing their knowledge and expanding your worldview, it becomes a more natural extension to go out into the world and say, that's cool, tell me more about it, versus because I didn't study biology, I can't possibly learn about it. It's so limiting to think that way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it makes necessary, this limiting way makes necessary that we kind of bring in all these things that would be natural. Like we had about right-centric education, we have to talk about it. But if we start this community network thinking and we don't separate by age, and it comes naturally, it's kind of grows, it's in the basic, and we don't restrict it because maybe that's the hopeful thinking. It's in our nature as a human being. Yeah, we don't want to dominate others. Exactly. We don't want to, I'm a bit, can't find the words, but all the things we do now in society, which is harming to other ones, I think we don't want to do it. There's this thing and maybe we experiment with it as a child, and maybe some like power more than others. And I think this word is very important, like this power thing. It's also in schools with this hierarchy, and we have to learn to handle power in a different way. And maybe that's the thing we all have to upgrade to, that we don't use power to overpower someone or to be obedient to someone, to underpower, but really, and that's what we want. We say at the school, like children have to find their potential, and they have to be creative, and it's being in their power, using their power in the way the system asks for. So it's becoming a community, it's becoming a network, and we are in service of all that. As a human being, we thrive the most if we can be in service for the whole by being ourselves. Yeah, how beautiful is that?
Yeah, you bring up a great point of like, let's work with human nature, not against it. I think about how the factory model of education is very against this desire to learn with each other and, get curious about the person sitting behind you at a different desk in the rows. There's a certain element when you look at a compliance-based system of, we don't want you to interact with each other. We don't want you to know information beyond what we've been giving to you. This is the whole thing with banned books and, restricting certain websites. Like, you still go back to this understanding that people are naturally curious and want to learn. And in an environment that supports that natural curiosity and that openness to having new experiences, like what's possible, everything, all of the potential. And of course, you need to make sure that everything is safe and inclusive. And like the 4-year-old said, everyone's right. But what does it mean when everyone's right? Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but is everyone able to go play outside all day long? Like when I look at democratic education, there are very few models that are exactly the same. You know, a democratic school over here is with the same terminology as another school over there, but they're doing very different things in the actual practice. And I know you and I talked about this a while back of my interest in like, how do you scale a system that is naturally better when it is more personalized? So that's what I'm kind of thinking of right now. And I want to talk about where do we think education's going? Because I fully agree with you on the power dynamics, and I think we agree on the community involvement. So if we do project out to 2045, what does it look like to be in a learning ecosystem?
Yeah, it's interesting. 45. Yeah. It's 20 years from now, so I really try to make it realistic, but I have no idea because I think the things that happening now and the jumps we make, we have to make, that are really a lot, they're coming a lot of leaps. That's what I see in the future. So I have no idea what it would look like. And I think that's a good thing because it's not restricted to my imagination. And now with education, we maybe educate for the past. And if we open it up, we educate, we more bring in skills and knowledge, and that's opening up so we can embrace what's out there. We don't know yet. So, and you said personalizing. I think what we can do now is really like looking what do we need, the ecosystem, make it open, dream big, and look at what we working with now. The school I'm at as a school leader, as a teacher, okay, that's the system I'm working in now. And what can I do here? What can I change here? So I go this direction. I can open up the system. And most of the times it's not changing the system completely, or because you take the attitude, you take the mindset, you take it with you. And if you use sociocracy or holacracy or democratic education, it doesn't matter that much. I'm a fan of democratic education because I like to do my thing and have conversations with people and finding out what they need and how we can fix stuff more than bringing over knowledge. So for me, that fits very well. And it has all these experiments there. You can find out how things work. And you have this openness. You can like, okay, you can adjust all the time. But it still has to come from this place of curiosity and of appreciation, like being this loving setting where you feel safe. And then the safeness doesn't have to come from the outside, but it feels safe in the community. I talk from a woman, as you said, like, I want to bring back these old values in our village because then my child is welcome at the neighbors and the neighbor's child is welcome at my place. And I know when they are out there, they are safe because they're looked after and they get something to eat when they're hungry. So bring back this kind of values that you know my child is safe, even when it's moving outside my boundaries, and also with schools that children can go outside of school on the other side of the fence for learning, because I know it's safe. That's something I really, that's my dreaming, that there's this kind of, in 20 years, everybody can move freely and go there where it's needed. And there is this guidance everywhere for everyone to find out, okay, how does things work here? And it's not restricted to age or to gender or to color or to whatever. So you have this safe space all over the world. That would be great. I don't know. Maybe we can do it in 20 years.
Maybe.
So where all these power issues are not playing anymore.
Yeah. I think it all comes back, for me at least, to relationships and less assumptions about what someone else is thinking or feeling or their rationale for doing something, and more actually asking them, why is that happening? Why do you feel that way? And that willingness to disagree and say, you have a different system, I have a different system, we're not speaking on the same terms, but at least we can acknowledge, like, you have a right to exist, I have a right to exist, and try to learn and grow in the world. And we're not going to cross that boundary in terms of like physical safety, because there are times that I think, you look online and you look at all of this hate and fear and judgments of other people. And it's kind of like, that's the worst side of our human nature, right? Whereas then you also can have these moments where we gather in a committee online, all the volunteers saying, we want to make the education system better so that everyone's thriving. Like, there's a duality of human nature that if you allow this side to create fear and judgment and assumptions, particularly about people, you're never going to actually experience what it's like to know them and what it's like to maybe see things a little bit more from their point of view. I never loved the expression of like step in their shoes, because you can't live someone else's life, but at least you can be aware that because I've only seen it this way in my life doesn't mean it's true for anyone and everyone.
That's maybe the one word I love the most. I took with me from the democratic school that worked with sociocracy is consent. Mm-hmm. And I'm exploring this even more, like making decisions with consent is so strong. Like everyone commits and there's always, someone wants something. And then everybody can bring in their view, but you don't have to agree. You don't even have to like it, but you can say, okay, if you want this, I can live with it because it's not destructive. I can't really see another way how you could get your thing going on. I still can do my thing, so fine.
Yeah.
But if it's not going well, don't come to me. Yeah, you can say this too. So it's like, it's out there that I don't agree, but if you want to do it, I won't be in the way.
Exactly.
But I also can't support you because it's not my thing. And I think finding that's possible, that's so strong, even when I want something and I have all these people who are saying like, I don't think if that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then you reflecting back, okay, what is it what I want? And maybe I see something the others don't see. And if they give me the space to try, it's also wonderful, but it's also maybe I say like, okay, maybe it's a stupid idea. Precisely. Yeah. But it's also, then you know what you're dealing with. And I think that's so, and everybody's hurt. Mm-hmm. So you don't need all this kind of interactions to like, okay, is everybody heard and we have to talk to them because it's just in the idea already.
Exactly. I think also when we think about how some of these decisions are really big, we're talking about land rights or pollution or condemn it as a building that people can't live in, etc. Like there's a lot of emotions brought up about what that means when someone else is going against what you would initially want. The best, opportunity for you, the ideal situation for you. It's like, it reminds me of a story. There was a 9-year-old in my class and we were ordering pizza because it was a fun day. And he just basically like went, it's fine if you guys want pepperoni pizza or pineapple pizza. I don't care. And it was just this moment that stuck with me because he just didn't care if someone else got what they needed because he was like, we're all going to get what makes the most sense. And it's just pizza. At the end of the day, there are some decisions that can have these long-lasting effects that you do need to take seriously, especially government policies, etc., like this. But a lot of times it's just pepperoni or pineapple pizza.
Yeah, precisely. And that's also like, it's a beautiful story because I have also this pizza model story because I was baking pizza with the children at school. And we made like pizza for the whole school. And the first 2 times we did it, it was kind of chaotic and children would get conflicts with each other. And I was there, like you said, like pizza is fun. Huh?
Yeah.
And everyone wants it. So why do you make all this fuss about it? And I was talking to them and observing. And then I found out, okay, everybody wants to eat pizza. So we said, we're going to make pizza. They all said, oh, don't come in. But there are only few children who really want to get involved in this whole process of pizza making, kneading the dough and bringing all the stuff, maybe even go to the shop to buy all the stuffs. That's just a few. So you have to find out, okay, who wants to go all the way? Then you start with a few. Then you have the other group who wants to kind of roll the pizza and put stuff on it and put it in the oven and serve it to the people. So that's a bigger group. So you bring them in on a later stage. So like, okay, you want to do this, so we call you when we at this point. And then the biggest group just wants to eat pizza. So you ask them, which kind of pizza do you want, pepperoni or pineapple? And then we say, okay, and don't worry, we'll call you. There's pizza for everyone, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay. And from this point on, it was amazing. We could serve a school with 200 students because there was this kind of committed team in the kitchen who would make sure that there would be pizza. And when then the work was a bit more, then different children would come in because they like to make it nice and put them out or to serve and everybody got pizza. So everybody was happy at the end, and there was still a lot of organizations, but there was no conflicts anymore. Because the ones who really wanted to commit didn't get disturbed by the ones who got bored or said like, when I eat pizza, it takes too long. And I guess that's so important that you have this space. Like with classrooms now, you have everything together, and we have to, also for a teacher, it's just not, you just can't do it. Mm-hmm. You try to manage and do, but it's really, really hard.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, I think as we're wrapping up this conversation about thriving education, which, I mean, there's so many spaces online that we're all talking about this. So this is definitely not the pinnacle of the conversation. But, I think it really does come down to less of the practical, like how do we do a curriculum? How do we organize the students? Who's in charge? And much more about recognizing where human nature and relationship building and communication can all be part of the educational model. That learning ecosystem that actually works with you. And that's why it supports people growing over time. And there's not like an end date. You don't graduate from life. You continue going through, and you're a lifelong
exactly,
learner.
Yeah.
Because you're modeling it and you're constantly engaged in your community, and you've been kind of dismantling those power structures for the whole time that you've been in community with other people. Well, part of my vision for the future of 2045 is that it's less like structured education and more like learning is just what happens through everyone's daily life. You're constantly engaged, you're constantly communicating, you're constantly wondering, and you might go to a learning ecosystem sometimes, but that could be as an adult. You could be 80 and decide to go to a learning ecosystem, which people do nowadays. On a college campus, you gather in groups. That just becomes less like, oh, it's only that one time in my life that I had this great debate club at university. That becomes part of something that you share across your life. And I think with learners, it's also that we understand more about how children develop and how children learn better through experiences rather than didactic knowledge and delivery methods, and more about like, how can you model being a lifelong learner for the children in your care?
Yeah, that's beautifully said. And I think that's also what I try to do also with the people I'm collaborating with, like role modeling it ourselves, but also bring this to schools. First, I was like, okay, I learned like a school team to implement decision making with the children. Then we found out, okay, the team has to do it themselves first. So they have to make decisions together and they have to connect with each other. And then it's going fluently to the children, and they're so fast, and they're much faster than we grown-ups with changing and giving up their opinion. It's like, it doesn't work anyway. Okay, I'm fine with the other one. Like I said, I'm fine with pineapple too. Exactly. They are so much more fluid than we are. So really role modeling it and doing the work ourselves.
Yeah, we've become more rigid because of the structure of the learning that we've gone through. Having to choose a major when you get to age 18, being told you have to pass this and that exam to even get a chance to go to university. I think as we look at this new generation of learners who are starting to already push back and say, why? Explain to me. I can say no because I learned to in school. There's going to be a shift also led by the individuals who are now stepping into professional roles saying, I didn't like growing up with that much structure. Let's figure out a new way to design it.
Yeah, precisely. And I think we as grown-ups, maybe it's not even our place to define the structures, but creating the space so they can evolve from the younger ones who have completely different mindsets and ideas and don't have all this kind of old patterns we still struggling with. Like really creating space for the young ones to grow through and having this relationship so we can collaborate.
Yeah.
And I bring in my experience and the holding space, saying, okay, I make sure you're safe so you can go, and taking over from them with decisions sometimes because it's hard, so you can carry with them.
Yeah, we're aiming for this. Everybody thriving and learning ecosystems that truly support human growth over a lifetime, not just for the first 13 years that you're in formal education. So with that, Katrin, anything else to share with our wonderful audience?
I think we said everyone's thriving, and it brought me back to one of our first conversations, like, what does thriving even mean? And I think that's what we have to figure out together. And then we're on the right path. Like, what do you mean by thriving? And what is it for you? What is it for me? And how can we hold space for each other?
It's a perfect ending. So anyone who's listened this far, first, thank you. And leave in a comment below what thriving means to you. Just any thoughts off the cuff of what does it mean to have a thriving society, a thriving learning ecosystem, and to thrive in your own life. And thank you so much, Katrin, for being here, for all of your wisdom. And I look forward to having many more conversations with you in the future.
Yes, the same for me. Thank you so much too.